correlation or if, but the point is that it's becoming more than ever a skill that is in demand. People pay for it. People value it. We're certainly, we always have. I mean, we obviously are fortunate enough to have some great shooters, but you can never have enough of that stuff.
Do you have any early medical updates on Katie or Clay? Has Clay had his surgery?
No.
So other teams get a month or more to look at this, just focus on the draft. For 5 years, you've had, 5 days before, after the season ends and you go to the draft. What have you learned about what's important to focus in a condensed time like that?
You have to rely on your staff. I mean, micromanaging doesn't work. I mean, you have to trust the people you work with. And what you learn is that, like you said, it's a very compressed window, whether it's the draft or free agency. And so you have to trust the people that are focused on that and have been focused on that. And, I don't know. I don't know what's right. I kind of joke about it, but it is somewhat uncommon to have such a small amount of time, and these are huge decisions we're trying to make and get right here in a short window of time. And there's also a mental, your fatigue level and just how do you kind of ramp it back up. But these decisions we make tomorrow and in the next couple of weeks will, they'll affect next year, the following year, and the following year. So you really have to be on point. So you rely on your group and make the best decisions you can.
Bob, all things considered, what do you think you've gotten out of the recent late first round and early second round picks? I guess with Kavan, Damian, Jacobs, Jordan.
Yeah. So let's see. Well, going back to obviously Draymond that obviously worked. But Festus I thought was good. He helped us play and was. Obviously, he had an injury, but I think he was a good pick. Nedovic, probably didn't. Damian's been, he's been injured. He started for us and was helpful. Looney kind of was written off, and obviously, really, to his credit, and our coaching staff developed well and become a big part of our team. Jacob, to be determined. I'm trying to think who else. Jordan Bell, yeah, Jordan. I mean, McCaw. They're all different stories, and the point is that maybe you like to get them all right. We try, but I don't think anybody's that good. I don't purport that anybody can get all those right. I mean, if you look at the numbers, the chances of success at that range is pretty low. Doesn't mean you don't. If you get it right, it's a huge payoff. Sometimes it takes time to see if you got it right or not. I think Looney was probably forgotten early, and now. Like I said, to his credit, it's become something. Was that a good pick? I guess so. But again, I think you have to wait a little bit on some of these things to really self-critique, and we do that up in our room. We say, what did we get right or wrong? Sometimes you grade the draft and say, we look back on last year's draft and say, why did we have that guy ranked so high? If we had picked him, we would have been wrong. So it's important to self-regulate on some of that stuff and not be so arrogant to think, well, we're smarter and we're better, and that never. I don't think you don't learn anything from that.
Do you have an idea of how many guys you've had in to work out?
Maybe 40, something like that. I'm not 40 to 50, I guess.
A few of those came in a couple of times.
Yeah, a few guys did come back a few times. A couple times, yeah.
Do you have the autonomy, the freedom this year to use every, financial avenue you can? I remember last year you guys didn't know if you were going to use the mid-level.
Right.
Obviously, DeMarcus became available. But do you have the freedom this year to use it all?
Yeah, I mean that's a I know you everybody here covers our team. I really would like to say I'm fortunate to work for someone that people say these things, but winning has always been the primary goal. And we run a business, so it's not being completely fiscally irresponsible. But every time I've went to Joe, it seems that has benefited us competitively. He's responded affirmatively and said, okay. So there's never really been a hard budget, so to speak. We got to be cost conscious too, though. I think that anybody would, but I will say the decisions we've made, I think, don't trust my words, trust our payroll. I mean, just look at what it is. It's big, and so you know, like I said with Cousins last year, you want to be smart about it. I don't think you just spend it to spend it or spend money to buy a pick tomorrow. You want to do it to win. But fortunately, we have somebody that is willing to engage in all that dialogue. And usually, if it's a consensus, yeah, do it.
Can you explain the disabled player exception or injured player exception, just how that process works, and if that applies to you guys when you have to apply for it? Are you guaranteed to get it? Those sorts of things.
Yeah, and generally it's a rule where if you have a player on your roster that is unable to play for an pretty extended amount of time, the league affords you an exception to get another player, and the value of the exception differs based on, but it's up to a certain amount, and I don't know the exact number, if it's 9 or I don't know what the exact number is, but gives you a little more. It's just, these are all, a lot of people don't understand, and I understand why they don't understand the cap. Only reason I understand it is I've been around. It hasn't evolved. Although the CBA has changed in 20 years, the exceptions are appreciate the question. I just want to do draft stuff today.
Okay,
If
but
that's
this gets into
in general, like
how
what
long you might be without the guy.
Oh yeah,
to,
well,
I mean,
yeah, I don't know right now. Yeah, I really don't know. I don't know until I know more. To speculate, I'd just be kind of guessing, and I know what I guessed would be written and wouldn't
Okay,
even matter.
not true.
But no, I understand. No,
Yeah.
you're not being.
Bob, obviously, every draft, you mentioned how it affects the future of this team, but every draft does. But considering the state of this roster, slew of injuries, is this maybe the most important draft that you've had in your career?
No, I think the most important one was the Harrison Draymond when we had the 7th pick. I mean, they're all important, but I think the most important draft would be a year where we were picking first, or second, or third, or fourth. Those are you don't want to miss ever, but the most important decisions you make, I think, are you don't want to get that wrong. We don't want to get the 28th pick wrong. We don't want to get anything wrong. It's just the difference between signing a max player or a minimum. If you don't get a minimum right, okay, well that's minimum contract is 2% of your salaries. I mean, it's literally 2%. If the salary cap's $100 million, and I'm being loose here, and you sign a player for $2 million, that's 2% of your payroll is a minimum player. It's a lot different when you're drafting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever. If you miss on that, that's a hard one to recover from. You miss on signing a player that costs 15, 20, 30. That's a different thing to recover from. 28, I don't know what that guy makes, $1.5 million. Yeah, it's an opportunity to get better. Is it change the it can, like I said, you can. There's been guys that have been drafted there that change the course of a franchise. It does happen. It's rare. We try to do that every year. We hold ourselves to the highest standard that we can. If we don't, then you guys all help us with that. So, is it the most important draft? I think they're all pretty important.
You mentioned being careful about roster spots. Do you think you're drafting 58 for the roster for sure, or is that kind of?
I mean, 58 may provide an option to have a two-way. Now with the two-way contracts, maybe that's another way to add another guy, take another look at a guy. But at that point in the draft, it's 2 minutes between picks. It's happening fast. We'll have already picked someone. Who knows if we get another pick? Will we have picked someone else? Will we have done anything else? It's only 2 picks better than somebody that isn't drafted. So, how valuable is it? It's nice to have. So we'll see what kind of who ends up even being available there.
You said last year that you were still, I guess, learning that two-way deal and trying to get in the swing of it. How do you feel with that and using that going forward?
I think it's great. I mean, how do I feel? I mean, I think it's a great tool for players and the league. It's just another 2 spots to. We've obviously used those guys. I think it's good. It's a way for guys that are kind of just in between the G League and the NBA to find that small space to feel like they're part of the NBA, that we can feel like we retain their rights. It's not just a guy that we really like that plays in the G League. It's actually somebody where we own their rights. We can utilize them, and they get to play in NBA games. It's a 17-man roster now instead of a 15, which is good. I think it's good for players. It's good for us. It doesn't cost what another guy would cost. And for us especially, because we've played 500 and whatever games in the last 5 years, it's been good to have guys like that can come up and spell minutes for some of the other guys. So I think it's been a good thing for us and the league.
You kind of said the first picks are kind of plug and play guys. People are expecting it to draft someone, put them in the lineup right away. Where you are you able to pick people and say, we know this guy's got a lot of potential, maybe we can coach him up? Or is it worth taking that risk that he doesn't have some specific skill that you're drafting for?
I mean, I think you got to balance it. You got to balance it between, is this a guy that can play next year? Is this a guy that can definitely not play next year? What kind of team are we going to be? What type of expectations do we have internally? How would we use this guy? How willing is Steve to like a player like this? Does he fit our system? Did he play 1 year? Did he play 4? Did he play 3? How mature is his body? How mature is he mentally? All those. Is he injured? Is he slightly injured? Is he fully healthy? Is he recovering? Does he need surgery? I mean, we drafted all kinds of guys. Draymond, you'd look back and say he was ready, but he didn't even really play much. He's about as ready as you can get in that range. He didn't play a ton. Festus was pretty ready, but he played, and he'd had an injury in college. I'm just looking back at our own previous history, but I think you factor all those things in, and you do hope, though, CW, you do hope that, sure, I mean, whoever you draft, you'd love to find him in the rotation. That'd be a nice hope. It depends.
Do you have a different seat? You mentioned coming. Oh, sorry. I don't want to do the last question. I'm not that
We'll do
smart.
one more after yours.
Okay. I'm not that good.
Yeah.
Do you have a preference, 1, 2, or 3 years in college, 1, 2, 3, or 4 years in college? You mentioned that. Would you rather have someone, if you're going to draft at that area, that be maybe been in a program for a while?
I don't know. I mean, they're all different, right? I mean, everybody's matures differently physically and mentally and emotionally. So, a first-year guy sometimes is more physically mature than a 3 or 4 year guy. It seems like nowadays it's pretty rare you can get a 4-year. I mean, they're all. Yeah. But it happens. I don't know. I mean, it's a fair question. I think we still try to just take the best guy available.
Do you have an idea of your summer league team yet, of who would be on there as far as Jacob?
I think Jacob's going to play. Other than that, it'll be probably whoever we draft. We have an idea. We have a board up there with an idea of people we're talking to that are free agents that might play on it, young free agents. But otherwise, on our roster, I don't think there's another guy. I don't think Damien's doing it. McKinney's going to go out there and work out. I don't think he's going to play. I think he's going to work out in Vegas. But it'll primarily be Jacob will see what he can do, and then the draft picks, putting them out there.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Bob.
All right, guys.
I appreciate it.